The first transmission came wrapped in thunder. A voice, cavernous and imperious, rolled across every human channel within the Erythra system. "Kneel! You stand in the presence of the divine ascendancy. We are eternal. We are gods." The broadcast was accompanied by a display of impossible power. A single alien cruiser carved a nearby moon in half with a beam of pure energy, the fractured surface glowing like the embers of a dying fire. The message was clear. Divinity had arrived, and resistance was not merely futile but sacrilegious. On the bridge of the exploratory warship HSS Dauntless, Captain Elena Ruiz folded her arms and regarded the spectacle with the unimpressed stare of a woman who had already lived through 3 wars and 2 political coups. "Gods, huh?" she muttered. "Somebody tell them we already have plenty back home, and they're all equally terrible at answering calls." Her dry remark broke the tension. Lieutenant Kaido Mori, the ship's chief engineer, stifled a laugh behind his console. His hands were already busy running diagnostics, his mind cataloging every flicker of the alien weapons display. Where Ruiz saw arrogance, Mori saw an engineering puzzle begging to be solved. "You know," he said, squinting at the readings, "they're compensating for instability in their energy matrix. It's flashy, but the power efficiency is garbage. Like using a sledgehammer to drive in a thumbtack." "Remind me to keep you away from religious ceremonies," Ruiz replied. "You'd ruin the mystique." Across the bridge, Dr. Amarandar leaned forward, eyes bright with a mixture of curiosity and unease. A linguist and cultural analyst, she carried the burden of interpreting the alien broadcast. Her voice was softer than the others, but it carried conviction. "They aren't simply claiming authority," she said. "They're invoking archetypes. Fire from the sky, voices from the void. These are deliberate symbols. They've done this before. Somewhere else. Their power depends on being believed." Which means Jax O'Malley cut in from the gunnery station. "If we don't believe, they're just jerks with big guns. So what's the plan, Captain? Do we send flowers, or do we shoot first?" Ruiz gave him a warning glance. Jax was a wild card of the crew, sharp-witted, dangerously impulsive, and completely incapable of treating interstellar diplomacy with the gravity it deserved. Still, she kept him on because he had a talent for improvisation that often made the difference between disaster and survival. "We're not shooting anyone," Ruiz said firmly. "Not yet. Command sent us here to assess, not to start a holy war." Jax grinned, leaning back in his chair. "Good thing, too. I left my goat sacrifices in my other uniform." The bridge chuckled, but the unease lingered. The Dauntless was a single warship, sturdy but hardly a match for the immense alien vessels now blotting out the stars. Humanity had fought wars before, but this was different. These newcomers weren't conquerors claiming territory. They were demanding worship. Ruiz stood, her expression hardening. "All right, people, let's make introductions. If they want gods, let's show them what humans do with myths." The communication link was opened, and the visage of the alien commander filled the screen. Its form was cloaked in radiant light. Details hidden, voice amplified into a reverberating roar. "You will bow. Defiance is blasphemy. Service is eternity." Ruiz didn't blink. "This is Captain Elena Ruiz of the HSS Dauntless. Humanity doesn't kneel. We negotiate. So, if you're interested in trade, diplomacy, or even a friendly game of cards, we can talk. But worship," she tilted her head, "wrong species." For a moment, silence reigned. Then the alien laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "Arrogant mortals, your words are dust. Watch and despair." Another demonstration followed. A derelict mining station vaporized with surgical precision. The alien commander's image vanished, leaving only static. On the bridge, Mori cursed under his breath. "Their weapon cycles are slow, Captain. 22 seconds between charges. That's a lifetime in a firefight." Amara tapped her console, scrolling through the alien broadcast fragments. "Their choice of targets is symbolic. Moons, stations, objects that signify dominion, not tactical value. They want awe, not efficiency. And they're getting it," Jax muttered. "Whole colonies trembling. Bet half the civilians are already lighting incense." Ruiz straightened. Then our job is clear. If their power depends on belief, we take that belief away. We prove they can bleed. Later, in the ready room, Ruiz convened her officers. The four of them sat around the small, scarred table that had served as the heart of many difficult discussions. We're one ship, Ruiz began. They've got a fleet. If we fight them head-on, we'll be scrap metal before lunch. So we adapt. We use their arrogance against them. Maury leaned forward, eager. I can reroute the shield harmonics, make their weapons scatter. It'll look impossible, but it's just creative physics. Amara nodded thoughtfully. And I can craft countermyths, broadcast our defiance in their own symbolic language, undermine their aura of inevitability. All eyes turned to Jax, who was spinning a coin idly on the table. He caught it with a grin. I say we make them chase shadows. Deploy drones, paint them up like rival gods, let them waste their shots on empty targets. If we're going to insult their religion, might as well go big. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. That's reckless, borderline insane, and likely to get us all killed. Exactly, Jack said cheerfully, which is why they'll never see it coming. Despite herself, Ruiz felt a smile tug at the corner of her mouth. This was her crew, pragmatic, brilliant, idealistic, and utterly unhinged. Against impossible odds, they had always found a way. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or numbers, but the refusal to play by anyone else's rules. She stood, her decision made. All right, let's make gods bleed. That night, as the ship drifted in silent orbit around the colony, Ruiz recorded a message to command. Her words were simple, measured. First contact with the so-called divine ascendancy. They claim to be gods. They demand our worship. We intend to prove otherwise. The mission continues. She ended the recording and leaned back, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. The alien vessels glittered like distant cathedrals, awe-inspiring and terrible. Yet in her chest burned a quiet certainty. Gods are not. The Dauntless slipped through the dark between stars, its crew tense but resolute. Captain Ruiz had given the order they would not kneel. That decision echoed in every corridor, whispered among engineers, gunners, and medics alike. They were one ship against the Pantheon, but one ship determined to prove gods could be wounded. The alien fleet made its presence known the following day. A formation of 3 colossal cruisers slid into orbit above Erythra, their hulls gleaming like temples carved from starlight. They radiated majesty designed to intimidate. To the colony below, they must have looked like angels of judgment. On the bridge, Ruiz studied the tactical display. Her jaw tightened. 3 cruisers. They're making a show of it. Lieutenant Maury tapped through sensor readings. His voice carried both irritation and fascination. Their reactor output is obscene. But look here, the energy cycling is sluggish. Their weapons burn bright, but take forever to recharge. They're overcompensating for old tech with spectacle. Amarandauer folded her arms, her eyes narrowing as she parsed the latest broadcast. The alien's declaration thundered once more. Submit. We are eternal. Defiance will be obliterated. She shook her head. Their rhetoric hasn't changed. Repetition is part of the act. Ritual maintains authority. If we disrupt the ritual, we disrupt their control. At the gunnery station, Jax O'Malley let out a low whistle. So, basically, we're dealing with space magicians. Big flashy tricks, smoke and mirrors. Only difference is, these magicians can glass a planet. Ruiz gave him a sharp look. Then let's make them miss their next trick. The plan unfolded with surgical urgency. Maury spent 12 straight hours buried in the guts of the shield array, muttering equations like incantations. He rerouted conduits, rewired emitters, and finally emerged from the access hatch with his jumpsuit scorched and his hair standing on end. It'll hold, he said, grinning despite the burns on his hands. At least once. After that, well, let's not get hit twice. Meanwhile, Amara crafted a counter-broadcast. She wove words in the aliens' own cadence, reshaping their grandiose diction into something that mocked without breaking form. When she tested the playback, the bridge crew laughed despite themselves. They won't, Ruiz said, But if it shakes even one of their underlings, it's worth it. Jax had his own contribution. He gathered a swarm of maintenance drones, spray-painted them with improvised glyphs, and programmed them to dart unpredictably around the battlefield. Meet our pantheon of knockoff deities, he said with pride. Let's see if their gods enjoy a turf war. The confrontation came swiftly. One of the cruisers broke formation and descended toward the colony, its weapons charging. Shields ready, Ruiz ordered. The alien commander's voice blared across the channel. Mortals, you cannot resist. Maury threw the switch. The dauntless shield shimmered, not as a barrier, but as a prism. When the alien beam struck, it refracted wildly, scattering into harmless rays of light that painted the void with color. On the bridge, silence held for a heartbeat, then erupted in cheers. Beautiful, Ruiz said softly. Physics, Maury corrected, though his grin betrayed pride. But the real surprise came next. Amara activated her counter-broadcast. The aliens' declaration was immediately mirrored back at them, their own divine cadence twisted into ridicule. You declare yourselves eternal, yet you falter. You are gods who cannot strike. Static filled the comms, then a burst of alien chatter. Uncertain, discordant. Jax seized a moment, releasing his drone swarm. They zipped across the battlefield, emitting false signals and projecting holographic distortions. On sensors, it looked as if rival gods had descended, challenging the Ascendancy's supremacy. The alien cruiser hesitated. Its weapons cycled again but failed to fire. Confusion rippled through their formation. Ruiz saw her chance. Target their aft thrusters. Minimal power. Show them they're not invincible. The Dauntless fired. A single torpedo slipped through the chaos and struck home. The alien cruiser shuddered, engine sputtering. Its grand aura of invulnerability cracked before the eyes of the colony below. For the first time, the gods looked mortal. The alien fleet responded with fury. 2 cruisers advanced, weapons charging. The Dauntless could never withstand a full volley. Ruiz's knuckles whitened on the armrest. Evasive pattern delta. Get us clear. The ship groaned as it banked hard, slipping through scattered beams of searing energy. Explosions blossomed in their wake. Jax hooped like a madman at the controls. Don't get cocky, Ruiz snapped. Too late. Jax shouted, dodging another beam by meters. Amara's voice cut through the chaos. Their followers are watching. Every second we survive, their illusion crumbles. They're desperate to silence us. Maury cursed from his console. Shields at 30%. That trick won't work twice. Ruiz's gaze hardened. They had proved their point. They could bleed gods. But if they stayed, they'd be annihilated. Helm, she ordered. Plot a jump to the dark side of Erythra's moon. Use the debris for cover. We'll vanish into the shadows. The Dauntless disappeared in a flash of light, slipping behind the fractured moon. The alien cruisers searched, their beams lashing empty space. For all their bluster, they suddenly looked less like gods and more like children lashing out in rage. In the silence that followed, the crew let out a collective breath. Ruiz scanned their faces. Maury exhausted, Amara thoughtful, Jax exhilarated. She felt pride burn in her chest. They had stood against gods and survived. But Amara's voice tempered the triumph. They'll adapt. Their empire depends on obedience. They cannot allow this defiance to spread. Ruiz nodded grimly. Then we don't give them time. We've shown they can bleed. Next, we show the galaxy they can fall. The crew exchanged glances. The moment carried weight. For the first time, humanity wasn't just defending a colony. They were rewriting the balance of power. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Ruiz replayed the battle in her mind. The refraction, the counter-broadcast, the swarm of ridiculous drones, all improvised, all absurd, all successful. She allowed herself a weary smile. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't brute strength. It was audacity. The gods would learn that soon enough. The reprieve was short-lived. From the shadow of Erythra's fractured moon, the Dauntless watched as the alien fleet tightened its grip. A blockade ringed the colony. Cruisers positioned like sentinels in a cosmic cathedral. Supply lines were severed. Civilian distress calls multiplied by the hour. Ruiz stood at the forward viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. The colony's lights shimmered faintly on the planet below, millions of lives trapped beneath the so-called God's judgment. "We broke their illusion," she murmured. "Now they'll make us pay for it." On the bridge, tension simmered. Maury hunched over his console, eyes bloodshot from too many sleepless shifts. Every diagnostic revealed the same grim truth. The shield matrix was unstable, the reactor strained, the weapons unreliable. "We can't take another direct hit," he said flatly. "Not even one." Jax leaned against the gunnery station, flipping a coin through his fingers. "So what's the plan, Captain? Suicide charge? Fake surrender?" "Personally, I vote for something that ends with me alive, and preferably drunk." Ruiz shot him a look. "Suggestions, not sarcasm." "Hey, sarcasm keeps morale up." He winked at Amara. "Right, Doc?" But Amara wasn't smiling. She had spent the last hours parsing intercepted alien transmissions. Her eyes gleamed with insight, but her tone was grave. "They're desperate," she said. "The Ascendancy's authority rests entirely on the illusion of divinity. Our defiance is corrosive. If it spreads, their empire fractures. Which means," Ruiz said slowly, "they can't just kill us. They have to make an example of us." Amara nodded. A spectacular trial. Ritualized execution, perhaps. Something to reaffirm their godhood. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. In the wardroom later, Ruiz convened her officers. The four of them sat around the battered table, fatigue etched into their faces. "We need options," Ruiz said. "We can't fight a fleet, but we can't abandon Erythra either. Ideas." Maury rubbed his temples. "I could try rerouting the reactor through the secondary conduits. Push the ship harder than it was ever designed to go. It might give us a burst of speed, maybe enough to slip through their blockade." Ruiz shook her head. "We escape, the colony burns. Not acceptable." Amara leaned forward, eyes intense. "Then we target their foundation. If we can expose their rulers as frauds, their subjects might rebel. They rely on obedience from lesser species. Take that away, and their divinity collapses. And how do you suggest we expose them?" Ruiz asked. Amara hesitated. "They keep records, archives aboard their temple ships. Rituals, myths, histories. If we infiltrate one, we may find proof." Jax's grin spread slowly. "Now that's a plan I like. Sneak aboard their holy palace, dig through their sacred diaries, and pull the curtain back on the wizard. Sounds fun." "Fun isn't the word I'd use," Ruiz said, but she couldn't deny the logic. The infiltration team was chosen. Amara for her linguistic expertise, Jax for his reckless resourcefulness. Maury protested, arguing his skills were indispensable, but Ruiz overruled him. "You're the only one who can keep this ship running. We can't afford to lose you." Before departure, Ruiz addressed the two volunteers in the hangar bay. The shuttle behind them gleamed faintly, its hull modified with stolen alien glyphs. "This mission is high risk," Ruiz said. "If things go wrong, extraction may not be possible. Understand?" Jax saluted with exaggerated flair. "Captain, if I die, make sure my epitaph reads, 'Mock gods, died spectacularly.'" Amara rolled her eyes but smiled faintly. "We'll return with proof. And if we don't, then at least humanity will know what we tried." Ruiz clasped her shoulder. "Bring me something I can use." The shuttle glided silently toward the nearest temple ship, its exterior shimmering with falsified codes. The vessel accepted them without challenge, mistaking them for pilgrims. Inside, the alien architecture loomed like a cathedral. Towering spires, glowing murals, chanting acolytes. Jax whispered, "Remind me to never complain about Earth churches again." "Focus," Amara said, though a tug at her voice. They slipped through shadowed corridors, Amara decoding glyphs, Jax improvising distractions whenever patrols drew near. At one point, he donned a ceremonial mask and launched into a mock sermon that sent a group of acolytes fleeing in confusion. Amara glared. "You're impossible." "Correction," Jax said, grinning. "I'm effective." Eventually, they reached the archives. Inside, Crystalline tablets pulsed with data. Amara's hands trembled as she activated the interface. Lines of alien script poured across the display, fragments of history long buried. Her eyes widened. It's all here. They weren't always gods. They were conquerors, mortals who stole technology from a predecessor race. They wrapped their theft in myth and demanded worship to hide their fragility. Jax whistled softly. So the gods are just thieves in fancy robes. Amara copied the records onto a portable drive. This is the proof we need. Alarms blared. The chamber bathed in crimson light. Jax cursed. Guess they don't like historians. Back aboard the Dauntless, Ruiz paced as the minutes stretched into eternity. When the shuttle finally returned, scorched but intact, she exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Amara staggered out, clutching the drive. We have it. Their lies, their history, all of it. Jax followed, grinning despite a burn along his arm. Told you I'd make it back. Barely. The crew crowded around as Amara displayed fragments of the stolen archive. The Ascendancy's divinity unraveled in text and symbol. They were no gods, just mortals terrified of being exposed. For a moment, hope flared. Humanity had a weapon more powerful than torpedoes. The truth. But Ruiz's relief was short-lived. Sensors lit up with hostile signatures. The alien fleet had detected the infiltration. Cruisers broke formation, converging on the Dauntless like predators scenting blood. Maury slammed his fist against the console. They're coming for us. Full power. They mean to end this. Amara's voice trembled. If they destroy us now, the proof dies with us. Ruiz's expression hardened. She looked around at her crew, exhausted, defiant, still unbroken. We can't run. We can't hide. If the galaxy is going to see the truth, we'll have to show it in the middle of the storm. Her words landed heavy, final. They had defied gods, unmasked them, and now faced the price of defiance. The Dauntless turned to meet the oncoming fleet. The alien fleet closed like a storm. Cruisers encircled the Dauntless, their weapons glowing with apocalyptic fury. To the colony below, it must have looked as though the heavens themselves were preparing to strike. On the bridge, Captain Elena Ruiz felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like armor. Her crew had given her the truth, the proof that these self-proclaimed gods were nothing more than frauds. Now it fell to her to make that truth undeniable. They want a spectacle, Ruiz said, her voice calm. Then let's give them one. Lieutenant Kaido Mori's hands flew across the engineering console. His mind danced on the edge of exhaustion, but exhilaration steadied him. I can overclock the reactor, modulate the shield projectors, and turn them into a broadcast array. We'll paint the sky with their secrets. Do it, Ruiz ordered. Dr. Marindar already had the stolen archive queued. She sifted through centuries of lies, assembling the sharpest fragments, their conquests, their theft of alien technology, the rituals designed to mask their weakness. Each revelation was a blade meant to pierce the illusion of godhood. They ruled with stories, Amara said, fingers trembling over the console. Now stories will unmake them. At the gunnery station, Jax O'Malley spun in his chair, grinning like a maniac despite the approaching doom. Captain, I've got one last card to play. Took some liberties with that alien tech we borrowed during our little field trip. Rigged it into the torpedoes. When they hit, it'll look like divine lightning turning on its masters. Ruiz arched an eyebrow. Does it work? No idea, Jax admitted cheerfully. But it'll be spectacular. The first enemy salvo struck. The Dauntless shuddered, lights flickering. Warning klaxons howled. Shields at 40%. Maury shouted. Hold steady, Ruiz said. Her voice was steel, steady in the chaos. Amara activated the transmission. Across every channel, the truth roared. The Ascendancy unmasked, their false divinity stripped bare. Holographic projections bloomed above Erythra, vast and undeniable. Images of alien rulers stealing technology, falsifying myths, cowering behind ritual. The colony gasped. Even among the alien fleet, chatter rippled, confusion, disbelief, cracks in facade. The enemy commander bellowed across the comms. Lies. Blasphemy. Mortals cannot challenge eternity. Ruiz leaned forward. Eternity just blinked. Everyone saw it. The enemy charged, desperate to silence the revelation. Beams lanced through space, scorching the void around the Dauntless. Now, Jax! Ruiz barked. Torpedoes streaked from the warship, their cores glowing unnaturally bright. When they struck the lead cruiser, the sky erupted in a blinding storm of light. To every sensor, every eye, it looked as if the Ascendancy's wrath had turned inward, smiting its own vessel. Panic rippled through the enemy ranks. One cruiser veered off, its crew unwilling to face what looked like divine judgment. Others faltered, their formation unraveling. Maury hooped, his usual restraint shattered. It worked. I can't believe it worked. Believe it later, Ruiz snapped. Target the flagship. End this. The Dauntless surged forward, battered but unbowed. Its cannons blazed, not with overwhelming power but with precision, each strike chosen to humiliate rather than annihilate. Amara's voice layered over the assault, broadcasting the aliens' own sacred tongue. You called yourselves eternal, yet you bleed. You called yourselves gods, yet you fall. The flagship's shields flickered. A final torpedo from Jax slammed into its hull, tearing through the ornate facade. The ship convulsed, explosions blossoming across its frame. On the comms, the alien commander's voice returned, no longer thunderous but raw, almost human in its rage and fear. You are nothing. You are dust. Ruiz met his gaze through the hollow feed. Gods don't bleed. You did. The feed cut. The flagship detonated in a cascade of fire, scattering debris across the stars. The battlefield fell silent. The surviving alien cruisers fled, their retreat disorderly, their divine aura shattered. On the colony below, cheers erupted, echoing up through the comm channels. Humanity had not only resisted, but triumphed. On the bridge, the crew sat in stunned silence for a moment, each of them absorbing the impossible. Then Jax leaned back, whistling low. Well, he said, guess that makes us heretics of the year. Maury groaned, slumping in his chair. I need a week of sleep and a year of therapy. Amara allowed herself a small, weary smile. The galaxy just witnessed a fall of gods. They'll never see us the same way again. Ruiz exhaled slowly, the weight of command easing from her shoulders. She looked at her crew, exhausted, scarred, but unbroken. Good. Let them see us for what we are. Later, Ruiz recorded her final message to command. Mission report. The Divine Ascendancy is no more. Their fleet was routed, their lies exposed. Humanity has shown the galaxy that gods can die, and that mortals can rise. The cost was high, but the lesson will endure. She paused, gaze drifting to the stars beyond the viewport. Debris still shimmered where the flagship had fallen. Fragments of divinity scattered like ashes. Recommendation. Prepare. The Ascendancy may have retreated, but others are watching. Today we prove humanity will not kneel. Tomorrow we may need to prove it again.